Have you ever felt like the more you give, the more invisible you become to your own children? You've raised them, held their hand through every storm, picked up the phone when they needed help, and now somehow it feels like they've put you on a shelf, like you only matter when they want something. And when you set a boundary or say no, suddenly you're the problem. I know how heavy that feels. To pour your love into someone for decades and be met with silence, or worse, indifference. But what if I told you that the answer isn't to try harder? That maybe, just maybe, pulling back, not pushing in, is what truly makes them take notice. There's something powerful that happens when you stop chasing connection and start reclaiming your peace. And in this video, we're going to walk through how that works. Not from bitterness, but from strength. From calm. Because the truth is, you are not here to beg for love from people you created. You are here to stand in the fullness of your worth and let your energy speak louder than your words ever could. Let's talk about what happens when you stop over-explaining yourself. When you stop trying to fix relationships that only drain you. Let's start with silence. Not the cold kind, not punishment, but the kind that says, I respect myself too much to argue anymore. You see, silence isn't weakness. It's power. It tells the world, I'm no longer available for confusion, disrespect, or emotional crumbs. When you speak less, you create space. And in that space, your grown children are suddenly left alone with their own thoughts. No more calls from you first. No more reminders. No more check-ins when they forgot your birthday or missed the family dinner without a word. That silence, it gets noticed. They may not say anything at first, but they feel it. Because here's the thing. People don't obsess over what's obvious. They obsess over what's missing. And when you've been the one always reaching out, always giving, always there, your absence becomes louder than your voice ever was. Silence says, if you're unsure about me, I won't be in your way. And that confidence, that stillness, it disrupts their sense of control. This isn't about emotional games. It's about reclaiming your energy. Because energy, attention, is a form of currency. And you've been spending yours like it was endless. Every time you paused your own peace to worry about whether they'd call back. Every time you bit your tongue just to keep the peace, even when they disrespected your boundaries. Every time you gave your time, your money, your heart, and got nothing in return but silence or guilt. That's gold you were giving away. And when you pull that energy back, you create scarcity. Suddenly, they're not swimming in your love and attention. They have to sit in the stillness you left behind. It's like turning off a faucet they didn't even know was running until it stopped. This is not about cutting off your children. It's about cutting off the parts of yourself that are constantly trying to prove you're worthy of love you already deserve. You have to stop pouring into people who only take. Because when you pull back, when you withdraw your attention, they begin to ask the questions you used to ask alone at night. Why isn't mom calling? Why hasn't dad checked in? Is something wrong? Did I do something? And the truth is, they did. They took you for granted. And now they're starting to feel the void you left. But here's the most important part of all this. You don't pull back to get a reaction. You pull back because it's time to come home to yourself. You spent decades showing up for everyone else. Now it's time to show up for you. And that begins with mastering your emotions. You may feel tempted to send a message, to explain, to defend yourself. You may want to clarify what you meant, or apologize for setting a boundary that made them uncomfortable. But you don't need to. Not anymore. Because the more emotionally reactive you are, the easier it is for others to dismiss you. But when you hold steady, when you stay calm, you become unreadable. And in a world where everyone overshares, a quiet soul becomes unforgettable. It shakes them when they can't read you. It makes them wonder what's going on behind the silence. It turns the tables, because you're no longer the one worrying about what they think. Now they're the ones wondering what you're thinking. And that shift, that moment where you stop reacting, is where everything begins to change. Now let me be clear. This isn't about pretending not to care. It's about refusing to be ruled by emotions that aren't serving you anymore. You can care deeply and still choose peace. You can love your children and still protect your heart. You can be available for healing, but unavailable for disrespect. You deserve to be met where you stand, not dragged back to where you once begged. You're not abandoning them. You're honoring yourself. And trust me, when you do that, truly do that, they feel it. The emotional balance shifts. The roles reverse. And the same child who once thought you'd always be waiting starts to wonder if you've moved on. Because mystery is powerful. And you, in your stillness, your calm, your quiet glow, are becoming the mystery they never expected. Not because you're hiding, but because you're healing. And that is something they never prepared for. You don't need to explain where you've gone. You don't owe anyone a press release about your silence. Because when someone has been surrounded by your love for so long, your absence is explanation enough. And here's the truth people often overlook. Your availability was part of the comfort they took for granted. When you were always picking up the phone, always adjusting your plans, always making space for them, no matter how they treated you, that familiarity slowly dulled your value in their eyes. It wasn't fair, but it was real. The more available you are, the less valuable you appear. It's a hard lesson, especially for parents who gave everything without keeping score. But emotional availability, when not respected, becomes emotional exhaustion. You become predictable, expected, background noise in a world that only turns the volume up when it needs something. But when you become less available, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, everything shifts. It's like turning off a light in a room they thought would always stay on. Suddenly, they're sitting in the dark, wondering where the glow went. Wondering how long it's been since they even noticed it. That's the law of scarcity. When something becomes rare, it becomes valuable. Not because it changed, but because people finally realize what they were used to wasn't guaranteed. When you stop overextending yourself, stop dropping everything to accommodate, stop sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop spinning in circles to earn love that should have been freely given, and you begin to stand still in your worth. That stillness speaks volumes. People want what they can't easily access. And when you, the parent who gave and gave, suddenly stop overgiving, you force a re-evaluation. Your children may not show it on the surface right away. They might pretend nothing's changed. But inside the questions start bubbling up. Why is mom quieter? Why hasn't dad checked in? Is everything okay? That discomfort they feel, that unease, it's not punishment. It's awareness waking up. They're not just feeling your absence, they're facing their own behavior. And that's where the power of mystery begins. Because when you're no longer predictable, you become magnetic. Think about it. If they always know exactly how you'll respond, if you always react the same way, say the same things, chase them with the same messages, there's no curiosity left. They've boxed you in. But when you stop showing all your cards, when you stop giving them every piece of your heart on demand, you become the unknown. And the unknown always draws attention. This doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means you stop over-explaining. You stop sending long texts trying to make them understand. You stop walking on eggshells to keep the relationship afloat. Instead, you become quiet, grounded, present, and unpredictable in the best way. They don't know if you're angry or just at peace. They don't know if you're hurting or healing. They don't know if you've moved on or if you're simply tired of being the only one trying. And that mystery? That's what begins to shift their perspective. Because when you stop handing out your emotions like flyers, when you protect your inner world instead of putting it on display, you become harder to read. And in a world obsessed with clarity and control, that unreadability becomes powerful. Let them wonder. Let them imagine you building a life that no longer revolves around their inconsistency. Let them realize that the person they thought would always be there isn't waiting anymore. Because that's when the energy changes. That's when obsession begins. Not when you beg for attention, but when you quietly remove yours. But here's where the rubber meets the road. You can't just pull back and wait for them to chase. That's not real strength. That's a tactic. And tactics don't work when your heart is still hoping, still watching, still waiting for them to notice. What you need now is not a tactic, it's transformation. And that means shifting from self-pity to self-discipline. Yes, you're allowed to feel the pain. It hurts. Of course it does. You carried them in your arms, in your home, in your soul. You've watched them grow, fall in love, make mistakes, build their lives. And now, they barely ask how you're doing. That kind of rejection runs deep. But what you do with that pain, that's what determines what comes next. You can sit in it. Let it rot. Revisit the conversations over and over in your head, wondering what you could have said differently. Or you can turn that pain into purpose. Get up. Move your body. Take a walk. Not just around the block, but around your mind. Clean out the corners where resentment is hiding. Get stronger, not just physically, but emotionally. Build your boundaries like they're muscle. Let your stillness be your new language. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to hint or hope. You just need to evolve. Because while they're still thinking of you as the version they left behind, you're quietly becoming someone they never expected. Someone they didn't think you'd become without them. And that's the kind of transformation that doesn't just get noticed. It lingers. It echoes. It disrupts. They thought you'd crumble. They thought you'd wait. They thought you'd keep calling, keep reaching, keep proving. But instead, you vanished from the script and started writing your own. So no, you're not trying to teach them a lesson. You're teaching yourself how to live again. Without apology, without permission, and without pretending you're okay when you're not. Because strength isn't in pretending. It's in choosing growth over grief, clarity over chaos, and power over pity. You are not what was left behind. You are what rises when silence is chosen over shouting. And when that happens, when you stop hovering around their lives like a forgotten bookmark, they finally feel the weight of what they walked away from. There's something deeply revealing that happens when you finally give people what they asked for: distance. Because for all their dismissiveness, for all the times they rolled their eyes at your advice or brushed off your concern, they always knew you'd be there. They counted on it, took comfort in the quiet consistency of your presence, even if they never said so. And now that you're no longer so easy to reach, now that your world doesn't orbit around them like it once did, they feel it. But don't expect them to say it right away. They probably won't, at least not with words. They may start calling at odd times. They might send a "just checking in" text. They might even get passive-aggressive. trying to poke at you to see if you'll respond like you used to. But you're different now. Because for the first time in a long time, you're not chasing closeness. You're not trying to fix what they broke. You're finally letting them feel the absence they created. And trusting that if they care, they'll come closer without being asked. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do as a parent. Letting your child sit with the silence. But it's also one of the most powerful. Because as long as you hover, liking their posts, texting first, offering help when it's not asked for, you're keeping them from fully facing what life without your presence actually feels like. And if you're always there, they'll never have to miss you. The truth no one wants to say out loud is this: sometimes your children won't understand your value until you stop being available. And that's not because you weren't enough. It's because you were too much, too present, too giving, too easy to access. And in their eyes, that turned your love into background noise. But now that you've stepped back and started tending to your own garden, they're left with the empty space where your presence used to live. And they start to notice things. The absence of your steady encouragement, the lack of your gentle reminders, the quiet when your name doesn't pop up on their phone like it used to. They may not say it, but inside, they're realizing just how much of their emotional stability came from you. And that realization, that's where reconnection can begin. But only if you let go of the idea that it's your job to keep the bond alive. Because it's not. It's a two-way street, and you've been walking both sides for too long. It's time to stop trying to hold on, not out of resentment, but out of respect. For yourself. For the version of you that has spent years being everything to everyone and ended up last on your own list. You don't need to prove your love by staying in relationships where your boundaries are ignored. You don't need to beg for attention from people who think your forgiveness is endless. And you certainly don't need to shrink yourself so your children can feel bigger. That phase is over. You're not letting go out of weakness. You're releasing your grip so you can free both of you. Because something beautiful happens when you stop trying to get them back. You start getting yourself back. And that's the real reward here. Not their guilt. Not their apology. Not even their renewed closeness. It's your return to you. You begin to level up. Quietly, steadily, powerfully. You start eating better, sleeping better, breathing deeper. You return to old hobbies, pick up new interests. You reconnect with people who pour into you instead of draining you. And slowly you begin to glow in a way that no phone call could ever bring. You become the person you put on pause when you were so busy being everything for everyone else. And guess what? That transformation, that calm, confident, grounded version of you, that's what makes them look back. Not the begging, not the guilt trips, not the long-winded texts, but the peace, the growth, the quiet strength that says, I still love you, but I love me too. And when they see that, when they see you thriving, not in spite of their distance, but because of it, that's when the regret kicks in. Because you didn't just move on, you leveled up. You became a version of yourself that no longer needs to chase, fix, or explain. And that version, that's the one they remember. That's the one they miss. That's the one they quietly wonder if they'll ever get close to again. But here's the best part of all. You are the prize. You always were. Not because you did everything right. Not because you gave without asking. Not because you sacrificed your joy for the sake of their comfort. But because you never needed to prove anything to be worthy of respect. Because your love was real, your effort was genuine, and your presence was a gift. If they couldn't see that before, it's not your job to make them see it now. Your job is to live fully, to reclaim the parts of yourself you lost trying to be everything to everyone else, to smile again without waiting for someone to deserve it, to rest without guilt, to rise without permission. Let them come to you. Let your energy do the talking. Let your peace become the thing they feel when they think of you. Because when you stop chasing, you start attracting. When you stop giving what was never appreciated, you start glowing. And when you start moving like the prize, they won't be able to ignore it. So take a breath. Pull back, not to punish, but to protect. Let the silence work in your favor. Let your healing be seen without explanation. And let the version of you that's emerging become your new home. You deserve to be pursued. You deserve to be appreciated. You deserve to be loved, not out of obligation, but because you are a rare, radiant soul. Here's to living your best, boldest, most peaceful life at any age. And if this message spoke to your heart, leave a comment below. Tell me your story, your thoughts, or simply say, I choose peace and I protect my energy. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel Strong Elderly Life, and turn on the bell so you never miss another message made just for you. You are strong, you are sacred, and you are the prize. Always have been.